The NTSB has recovered the door plug from an Alaska Airlines flight 1282. The panel was torn off mid-flight on Friday with a plane full of passengers on board. Alaska Airlines had flagged the 737 MAX 9 in question after the auto pressurization light illuminated on 3 previous flights. For this reason, the jet was restricted from long flights over water. Whether this in any way is related to the blowout is a question that officials are now working to answer. Investigators are scrambling to inspect dozens of locally built Boeing jets. Maddie White with her sister station in Seattle has more tonight.
I'm excited to announce that we found the door plug.
NTSB says that door plug, weighing more than 60 pounds, was discovered by a Portland teacher Sunday night.
And said he found it in his backyard.
171 passengers got the shock of a lifetime Friday.
Bang, or like a boom.
And passengers say one teen even had his shirt ripped off from the explosive decompression.
And the mother was holding on to him. And she said her son's cell phone and some stuff blew out of the plane.
Turns out they weren't the only young person on the plane.
I also want to mention there were 4 unaccompanied minors on this flight.
Miraculously, no one was seriously injured. NTSB commended the flight crew's actions Sunday night.
The flight crew entirely did an excellent job. Thank you for that.
But federal officials ultimately ordered the grounding of the 737 MAX 9 so they could investigate.
And we've requested documentation on all defects since delivery of the aircraft on October 31st.
A newly released photo shows the NTSB examining that specific plane's fuselage plug. Aviation expert Scott Hamilton says the door plug will be important to their investigation.
They'll be able to take a look at the stress marks of where the bolt holes were, and they might be able to draw some conclusions from that.
How soon do you think we could get an explanation of what happened here?
I would expect that by now they would have had the chance to do a preliminary readout of the cockpit.
He said this process can be lengthy, as they'll likely go back to the supplier of those bolts and check records to see if there might have been any defect in their manufacturing.
Were all the bolts reinstalled properly? Was it properly inspected?
Officials point to 2 reasons for why serious injuries were avoided in this case. First, the fact that no one was seated in the 2 seats next to where that blowout happened. And secondly, that the plane was only at 16,000 feet rather than at cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. And in our effort to bring you more to every story, we looked into if it was possible to know what kind of aircraft that you'll be flying on before you book your ticket. We can tell you it is for some airlines. If you are ever wondering what type of plane you'll be traveling on, including the Boeing 737-9 MAX, here are some steps you can take before you book your flight. Nearly every airline in the world lists the type of aircraft on the flight's reservation page. For example, Alaska Airlines. Once you pick your location and dates, you can click the drop-down Details tab for each flight. It'll open up a page showing you all of the flight details. On the right-hand side of the page, you'll see the flight number and the aircraft that is scheduled for the flight. It will list the company and the model of the airplane. If your trip requires multiple flights, you'll also be able to see the details about those aircrafts as well. And remember, airlines can sometimes change the aircraft schedule, especially if you book several months in advance. Details involving which specific plane will operate your flight aren't nailed down until 2 to 3 days before departure. You can typically check the plane you'll be flying on after you check in or by using Google Flight Search.